Welcome to Gatecrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, and our code is this: to make all things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. Today returns one of our most frequent guests, the Steve Orlando of comics, but he's not alone. I cannot explain how giddy I am to say these words, but we have AEW superstar Nyla Rose joining us as well to talk about their upcoming giant-sized X-Men Thunderbird #1, when it goes on sale April 27th, 2022 for Marvel Comics. How are both of you?
Wonderful. That's a heck of an intro. There's a lot to unpack in that whole thing, that whole spiel.
I've gotten so used to just getting it all out that sometimes I forget to introduce who I am, so that's fine. Yeah, I've been trying. I've been so excited to chat with you both. Steve, you know I love you, but Nyla, I got to see you. So I told you before the show, like, I was not really huge into wrestling until this year when I went, last year, when I went to All Out. Right. I flew to meet my friends, and I was like, oh, when I was in the room, I was like, oh, fuck, this is what wrestling is. Like, I get it. Like, I love this energy.
There's nothing like it, right? It's such a unique, electric environment. It's such a wonderful energy.
And like when people are mad, they're still it's still fun. Like they're just, even when they're chanting expletives, it's like a great time.
It's a good stress relief.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with us, but we are, as a show, we are pretty hard-hitting journalists. So I always like to open with a really strong question that catches a lot of people off guard.
Good. I hit back just as hard. Let's get to it.
What's your favorite sandwich?
Favorite sandwich? Oh man. I would say probably a crispy chicken sandwich. Just any kind of like fried crispy chicken sandwich, and then from there, let's get crazy. All different kinds of sauces. Throw some different cheeses on that bad boy. Personally, I'm a huge fan of gochujang, Korean barbecue sauce kind of deal. Throw some of that on there, and I'm in heaven.
Nice. And Steve, you've answered this question before, so I have something different for you.
I was going to say, you should have my answer cached at this point and be telling me what my favorite sandwich is. I hope I said the Cuban last time, because that's the answer.
Typically, it's a Reuben for comic writers. That's typically what they go with.
Oh, then I'm definitely a comic writer at heart, because that's like my favorite deli sandwich, 100%. Like this is serendipitous.
Nyla's got subcategories. Yeah. She's like, we're talking fried sandwich, we're talking cold sandwich. Respect. Yeah, obviously Cuban. That's the really only answer. Although I have to say, let me throw it back, Dan McMahon, your neighborhood, the Donkey's Place cheesesteak.
Oh, it's so good. I didn't know you went there.
Nyla, next time you're in South Jersey, or if you are in Philly,
end of the month,
Donkey's Place, right across the border. It's Bourdain's favorite cheesesteak he ever had. Rest in peace. It's killer. I honestly, like, one of the top 3 things that I've ever had in my mouth, including my ex's. It's so good. So that needs to bear mentioning. And if you're going there at the end of the month, absolutely. I mean, they deliver, but there's also 2 locations. There's Camden, which is the sketchy one, and one other, right, Dan? I know there's one other.
I didn't know there was another one. I've only gone to the one in Camden, but I'm lucky.
Well, there sure are 2, because Mike would not go to Camden.
I am 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes from the Camden one, so I can go over, and they Grubhub to me. So paying the extra $300 for the sandwich is absolutely worth it. It's on like a roll a circle roll rather than a long roll. It is
a Kaiser roll or a bulky roll, depending on.
I like when rolls have fancy names like ciabatta.
Yeah. Ciabatta. Steve,
they should just we should get you a gig just announcing like the Arby's sandwiches. Fuck Ving Rhames.
Bum 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 bum.
Arby's, we've got the meat.
I didn't want to do the whole thing. I didn't know if I don't. That's copyright.
I haven't been sued yet.
I think it's got to be we got the meats bitch.
Yeah,
based on your new merch.
Don't tempt me. We do own a T-shirt press that might make its way to real life.
Incredible. So, Steve, I had one for you because I try to ask everyone something unique. If you had to go on a double date with any fictional couple, who would it be?
Oh God.
Yeah.
But I have to subject Mike to them.
Yes,
that changes
Mike
everything.
has to be there. Yeah.
I was like, just can't pick the messiest. I was like Merlin and what the hell's her name? Morgan Le Fay. But that would be crushing for Mike, and he gets uncomfortable around the straits. So what is my answer? I'm like dashing my head around to my highbrow literary collection. Yes, it would be The Master and Margarita from the iconic early 1900s and my favorite novel of all time, The Master and Margarita. One is a oppressed Soviet author who's trying to write a book about Pontius Pilate, who he thinks was not that bad. And the other is his muse, who ends up fighting the devil for him. So that's who I would go with. Because you expected me to say North Star and Kyle, so fuck you.
No, I listen. I would never put you in a box. I wasn't ready for someone to come on the show to talk about a character who was pro Pontius Pilate, but
well,
never know. You never know what you get.
I mean, Immortal X-Men just came out. I'm just trying to get the rub on Kieran. Yeah. It seems smart. So
look at all my books. Now,
the irony is that you can't see any books. You can just see my Fright Masks and my Absolute Edition comics. The books, but there are books. I promise.
I can see the liquor. I've never seen any books in that office.
Oh, you meant Jesus. You said that. I thought the thing from Resident Evil. You meant the booze. I was like, there's no Resident Evil shit around. Anyway.
So
remember when we were supposed to talk about real things?
Yeah.
I don't.
Listen, I've gotten so used to you and I. It's fine. What draws you both to Thunderbird as a character?
I guess I'll take the silence and go first. For me personally, it's the fact that I never really got a chance to attach to Thunderbird. Like by the time that I came into comics, he was already, in the thereafter, if you will. So any of my knowledge that came from Thunderbird came from reading the backs of cards that I collected or having him mentioned in other comics, referenced, but I never really had a chance to get to know him. And I suppose that's how a lot of people got to know him, but there was never that huge base knowledge or that I didn't get in on the ground floor with him. So there was a lot of curiosity surrounding him for myself. Obviously, us both being native, huge draw for me. And then just having the opportunity to get to work on it was I'm all in. I get to re-meet this character, reintroduce this character, and learn more about him than I ever thought possible. So that's what drew me in.
And let me just say as well, Nyla got up to speed on the current Krakoan era in record time because we had already known each other from social media a little bit, but the outreach happened honestly because we knew this was coming around, and I wanted to work with someone who understood the experiences that Thunderbird would have had. And then Nyla I don't even know if you were on Dynamite or one of the pay-per-views, but you had Mystique gear.
Pay-per-view. That was a pay-per-view.
I was like, okay, so clearly she's an X fan. Now I'm going to lean in. And that was my first outreach. But then I also remember that first call and I was like, quick update, mutants can't die. And they have their own nation. And here's a bunch of other shit. And you were like, I'm gonna need the weekend.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's
some
fine.
reference material.
But she got with it right quick. So I mean, for me, I always loved the character from a look standpoint because, like Nyla, I was collecting trading cards when I was younger and shit like that. But to me, it was about once we found out he was coming back, which is something the Room came up with, the X-Men office came up with. Look, we had to do it right. There's no point in bringing these characters back and just letting them sit on the shelf or fuck off into obscurity. So, if we're going to do something, let's really do it. And that's, when the idea, and, to be fair, outside of not being native, I myself am a stubborn asshole like John. So I do actually understand his personality, his base personality, I think perhaps too well, if you ask people who know me. And even more so the people that I grew up with, the type of person who is so, toughness and looking hard and seeming hard are such a priority that, they sometimes even dive bomb aspects of their life to clutch onto it. And nobody knows that better than Thunderbird, a guy who essentially like didn't want to be told what to do, to the extent that he just let himself blow up on an airplane 50 years ago. So I understood a lot of his like personality and point of view as, to be frank, sort of a bit of a toxic guy like myself. We've obviously moved him on past that, but when he came back, it was about sort of taking that and again doing it right, doing it with working with Nyla, working with David Cutler, and finding how we could modernize that. And part of the fun of it was, you know, what Nyla said. He'd been gone for a long time to a point where he, you know, folks had deified him and mythified him in a way that it didn't necessarily match his characterization in his live appearances. And I think that was a really fun pull now that he is back, you know, because he says, well, this isn't the guy I was, but he hasn't been here to prove that one way or another for the past 50 human years and, you know, mumble amount of comics years. And that really interests me, you know, because you can say whatever you want about someone when they're not around, but then they come back and either prove you right or prove you wrong. And I think there's a lot of that in the book.
With, as you said, with Thunderbird being a native person, what was it like for you, Nyla, to help bring an authentic voice to the character when in their history they didn't really have a ton of that?
It's a huge honor and a huge privilege. There was a couple of concerns of mine, you know, because we aren't of the same tribe. So I didn't know how that would be received. Pleased to say that at least currently on the surface level, everything seems to be great. Everybody's very thrilled that at least a native voice or several native voices are attached to this. But yeah, just getting to have that honor and to get in there and bring some of the point of views and aspects of the culture that may have gone overlooked. Some things that we kind of highlighted with his costume, instead of just throwing some tassels on him and, you know, saying, yeah, draw him with some fry bread in his hand and like cut him loose. You know, no, we actually kind of like attach some actual culture.
Little do you know, that was my initial pitch.
Yeah. Sadly, that probably would have got over. Like we do love fry bread. Like what can I say? It's delicious, you know. It's like, but no. Yeah. So actually being able to like say, hey, this is what true native culture is, and I by no means am no like expert on the matter, and I still am learning much about my own culture, my own heritage, because I did not grow up in it so deeply. So it was kind of a vehicle for that for myself as well.
Were there any things that you were adamant about making it to the page so people could feel represented when they may have not before?
I would say probably mostly just redesigning the costume and not having him be so stereotypically native. You know, that was a big thing for myself. And I was super thrilled when everybody was on board, like, yeah, let's give it an overhaul. I have a tendency to pitch some wild stuff, like whatever the situation is, I'm shooting past the moon. You know, it's like, what are you going to say no? And then we're back to not doing what we weren't doing in the first place. So that's kind of my standpoint on everything. So I was like, yeah, let's redesign this character that's been around forever. Like, cause I have the authority to do that. And everyone's like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, oh shit, we can do that. All right. Okay. My bad. I didn't think that was going to be a yes. I don't know what to do. I didn't think it out past that. So there was that. And then selfishly, I don't know if Steve knows this, but totally selfishly, the last few pages, there's some stuff there with a relative of Thunderbird that came from me, came from my story, came from my heart, just to kind of like pay homage to my grandmother who passed. And I was over the moon. I cried so many times when that was left in the story and it made it to page, made it to print. That just means the world to me.
It's funny. I actually didn't. Yeah, I didn't know that, Nyla. So we're breaking ground here. We're making news, Dan. But the funny thing is, I would have said that I browbeat you into that beat because I too was like, I have no grandfathers. They both died before I was born, and my grandmother was born. She's also passed away now, but was born in 1906 and lived almost to 101.
Wow.
So like, she was a tough ass person. I mean, and was a big influence on me and sort of how I lived my life. So it's funny because I was ready to go to the mat for that if it didn't work for you. It turns out I didn't have to because we were both coming from similar places. But I think this might actually be the first time we've ever discussed that. I think we were both just really, really fiery about it and on board and didn't know it. But yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we said another thing is we are introducing Thunderbird's grandmother. So I can say that here. Because I think we said that in the Them interview.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we said that,
ago.
But yes, I put some.
Well, let me take the heat on that. Like, it'll be fine. But it's important, because to me, like that is a humanizing factor, right? Like Thunderbird is this huge hard ass, and he's a guy like Ben Grimm that is going to pick, or James Kirk that is going to pick every single fight he can, knowing he's probably going to win about half of them. But at the end of the day, like he's a softie for this woman that raised him, and talking about life. And I think that does add some character to him because he's not, he has his facade, but if nobody can break through, then it's not a facade. It's just who you are. So I think the fact that you see how he is with her, and props to Vita and for what they did with the short scene with Thunderbird and Warpath in New Mutants, you can see as well that there are people that he lets his guard down around. And I think that gives a lot more sort of richness and complexity to them. There's not many, Nyla and I have talked about it, and Al Ewing and I have talked about it. It's hard to break through and get into the circle of trust. But once you're there, I mean, he's your ride or die.
For sure.
There's probably less than 5 people that are there, but I was really happy for that moment. And yeah, I'm very excited for people to meet the woman that taught as Nyla dialogues taught Thunderbird all there is about walloping, and we're very excited about her. She was a great ad.
Now, he is one of the characters in comics who's pretty much stayed dead the longest. What was really the first thing on your mind when writing a story about his return?
I'm going to let Steve take that because for me, it was sheer panic. This being a brand new world of writing comics, coming from my performance background, I've written scripts, I've punched up scripts, I've written skits, directed a few, extremely minor things, but to write a comic book was it's a whole new, there are a lot of familiarities there, but it's a whole new world. So it was panic around every turn. And then very, very early on in the developing stages, Steve and I had a phone call and he really put me at ease and was like, don't worry, just write some stuff down, we'll compare notes, we'll polish it. And I was like, okay, I can stop hyperventilating. I can get some stuff on paper, and we'll go from there. But for me, it was panic.
I mean, the funny thing is, the reverse would have been like, I could certainly help you learn to write comics, but there's 0% chance you could ever help me learn to take a bump because I'm a giant coward.
Want to bet?
So yes, I have full agency over my body, but oh my god, yeah, there's 0% chance. That's the thing. Like I saw Ron Funches work this angle because he's tight with Danhausen, and I was like, I also am friends with Danhausen, but I'm not friends with anyone that much. I could never. I was in a boxing club in high school, and I got punched in the face for real 3 times, and that was the worst 3 times in my life. It was terrible. Anyway, about Thunderbird, I hinted at it before. Look, this is not my first comic. I'm not going to like romanticize that, but it was an intimidating job because there's a huge amount of responsibility. Because the character means so much to, especially to Native folks and X-Men fans in general, as the first X-Men to fall in battle, and so on and so forth. So to me, the challenge and the panic almost had subsided by the time we got Nyla and David on, because to me it was just like, we got to do this right. We can't just pull this out of our ass. We have to respect these folks. We have to respect the character and give them the things that they've been waiting for honestly too long. So. That easily were the first thoughts through my mind. But by the time Nyla's panic was beginning, mine had already blissfully subsided because, I know we can get these things done. I've written comics in every sort of scenario you can imagine. And I was not worried about that. But what was important to me from start to finish is making sure that we're really paying respect and giving a soul to this character who has been away for a long time. And not changing who he is, but again, adding depth and richness to it, which God knows, I hope we did. Folks will be seeing soon enough.
Hopefully. And let me just add, I think it's another testament. if I may, I think that's a very good reason why me and Steve work so well together, because for all those reasons you said were exactly why I was panicking, because of how important this character is to so many people. And I just want to do it right. I don't want to come into this. I'm stepping into somebody else's world. I want to respect that. And I want to do this justice, and I want to do it correctly.
And to run off of that, I've spoken with Steve a few times about co-writing, especially with things like what you did with Heavy Metal with the Boulé special. And you see it more as a way of teaching and helping guide and getting people's story to where they want to be. Essentially, you're the manager character in this scenario. So with this being your first comic, Nyla, was it an easy format to tell stories in? Because I know you have the background as an actor and a wrestler. Do you think that helped you prepare to write a comic, or is it a very different monster?
So hindsight being 2020, now that I can look back on things, I definitely see how my background helped in this new foray, especially when I'm trying to create this dialogue out of thin air. There was really no guide for how to do that. So I'm literally standing up in my living room, acting out scenes, and I'm writing these full-on damn near soliloquies. I've got like Hamlet going on in my living room, and I'm playing every part. And then I'm like, okay, we don't have that much room in a dialogue box. Let's see how we can crunch this down and get it concise and get the message across of this, whole monologue that I've just created. There's a lot of overlapping in the two worlds for sure. But it is very different at its core.
I'm glad the manager line went down well. I was like, oh, that's kind of how it is.
Mean,
Steve's a great Vicky.
Vicky could also kick my ass. So let's just stop trying to like.
I just learned that there was a character named the Pallbearer. I didn't believe that was a real name. And
hold on, it's just Pallbearer.
Yeah.
Wait, okay,
not the Pallbearer.
I'm going to give you some homework, because he is one of the most fantastic characters in all of wrestling. I mean, between wrestlers, man, like, oh my gosh.
I spent 30 minutes looking at pictures of him.
You're going to have some homework.
Oh my God, just watch. You didn't even have to watch the match. Nyla, don't kill me for saying that. But like the 2004 WrestleMania, when Undertaker goes back to being a zombie, and like it's the entrance, which just opens with like a pure darkness, and you hear Pallbearer's voice. So good. Like I could just watch that. It's like after 4 years of underbiker/biker taker, take your pick of what you want to call that.
Yes, I do.
Walker, Texas taker.
So pleasing. so pleasing to Walker, just see like the monks come out, and like suddenly you hear Pallbearer. God. And yeah, Nyla is right. One of the greatest wrestling characters of all time.
I've just started going back to watch like classic matches, because I've understood who the Hardy Boys are. Now I'm like trying to catch up and like learn who all these people are that I'm seeing for the first time.
I think you should go watch the Final Deletion with no context at all, which is a match that Matt and Jeff did. And they each play at least two different characters in this 15-minute match that was shot in their backyard.
You really want to blow Dan's mind. Pallbearer was actually a funeral home director.
You're
like
fucking lying.
He was a genuine mortician. Like a bona fide, as we say, shoot mortician.
Sure, Nyla. And Kane was also a dentist.
Well, at one point.
I don't know if that's a liar, because you could tell me that and I believe it.
No, I'm being 100%
No, if she says
serious.
it's a shoot.
Paul Mooney, Percy Pringle III, like he, not Paul Mooney. What the hell am I talking about? Paul Moody.
Percy Pringle.
Yeah, Percy Pringle III.
Yes,
he is a genuine mortician.
He earned a degree in mortuary science and earned certification as an embalmer mortician. Holy shit.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Wrestling fucking rocks.
I mean,
wrestling is better than that thing you like.
Yes. Oh, God. Sorry, I need to recuperate after that one. My brain's melted.
That's like the opposite, Nyla, that's like the opposite of working himself into a shoot. He shot himself into a work, basically.
That might be a first. That might be a first.
Having a moment over here. Sorry, I've got more questions. I'm just Paul Bear is wow. Oh. All right.
He might be. That's easily Mount Rushmore of managers, right? I mean, Heyman has to be up there.
I would put Heenan.
I would put Luna. Well, Luna or Sensational Sherry or Elizabeth. I guess you got to pick one. But that's just me.
If I had to, my Mount Rushmore of managers. Don't tell Vicky. I'm gonna credit this because she's still working. There we go. That's my loophole. That's
Mount Rushmore of retired.
Yeah, that's how we're getting at it. That's how Vicky's not gonna kill me. I would put Freddie Blassie. I would put Bobby the Brain Heenan. I would put Luna, and I would put Paul Bear.
Heenan's got to be one. I think that's a good point.
I'm gonna have to look all of this up.
God, could you imagine Luna backing you? That shit would be wild.
Dude.
Oh my God. I saw you retweet me when I was watching that shit match that she was in with Bam Bam Bigelow against Doink in like WrestleMania 10. And like in real life, like those two are some of the toughest motherfuckers in the roster at the time. Like unreal that they're just working this literal clown match. Like I'm not even just
several clowns.
God.
The one that I've been following or been trying to like not catch up on because I'm 20 years late, but the Steve Austin, Vince McMahon stuff. And it's just some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like he beats that old man up all the time. It's awesome.
For the record, that old man is only like 55 in that angle.
I know.
Because it was, but yeah, I mean, the thing about things we didn't come here to talk about, like
great heel.
Like charisma is such a natural part in my view. Like I'm not here to explain wrestling to you two, but like some things, like I do feel like, I don't know if you feel this way, Nyla, but I feel like there are some things that there are intangibles, right?
Oh, 100%.
Like
you just can,
like that promo for Austin and Kevin Owens, like he's 57 years old and it still feels realer than half of the angles going into this weekend. Cause it just like, there's something there where every time he says something, you buy it, and I do feel like that in some ways you can't teach that.
You absolutely cannot. That's the it factor. Yeah.
That's the difference between Farmer Brock and Jake Hager. No shade on Jake Hager because he could kill me, but he's not the best promo, and sometimes I think that works against him because obviously in real life, that dude is a monster. Probably has more shoot cred than most people on the roster I would think right now.
I would co-sign that.
But and to be fair, I would have also said that about Brock until this recent Farmer run, and now I just can't get enough of that shit. I don't know what the hell he's doing.
Sometimes
it's like he finally
you throw the wildest thing out there, and it just works.
But anyway, yes, Austin McMahon. I don't know where you should like. There's a part where it goes bad, and I feel like we should warn him. Like maybe the higher power. Like when?
No, we're not warning him about anything. Just let it ride.
I just have to get through it all.
Just let it ride.
The milk truck. That's later on, but I was just explaining that. I like it too. I was explaining it to Mike last night.
I was so lucky that I got to like come in sort of closer to the beginning of AEW and like I get to like see this stuff grow and see all the storylines and stuff play out. I don't have to tell you both, but fucking rocks. Like I love watching this stuff.
Love to
hear
it.
I got to be there for the start of the Punk stuff and I got to watch the end. Like it's
you're having a great time now. The craziest thing about wrestling, when you're looking back on this, you're going to be even more over the moon about it. I guarantee it.
I'm so excited because I'm an adult now and like now I'm super into like all this stuff that I was so hesitant to even look at when I was a kid because my last name. So
I mean, I will tell you, Nyla, it was like I'm glad you're on the come up because watching Jade like tank one of my other friends last night was very hard for me. Jade is now a mega heel for shitting on me in my eyes.
Shouldn't leave it though. Like
she'll be fine.
But I shouldn't leave it in a loving way.
She's the best. I'm a big fan, but yes, I was mostly just happy she got on Dynamite, but I was like, oh no. Anyway,
I got.
Did you have comic questions?
I have one more comic question, then I have a couple wrestling, and then I have more for you, Steve. Ready? What, with all the new great design by Dave Cutler and the team, what do you think the new costume means to John Proudstar himself?
Oh, you know what? We're not going to answer that because there is a data page that answers that exact question.
Beautiful.
So I rarely do this, but we
Plead the fifth.
minority reported that question ahead of time, and there's one of the data pages I'll say is John, of course, handwriting a memo to because he doesn't do that internet shit.
Oh yeah.
Handwriting a memo to Jumbo Carnation about like what he needs what the new gear has to look like and what it means. So it is a bespoke data page to you, it would seem, to answer these questions. But suffice to say, all the colors do have meanings. There is a methodology behind it, but you'll see when you read the book because we foresaw that and made a data page out of it.
I'm so excited. I'm really excited for this book in general. Now, a couple of wrestling questions that are related to you, Nyla. So for your in-ring kind of persona, what has influenced that character or person or your performance, however you want to go about that?
It's very, very funny that you kind of bring that up, right? I always look to a big part of your wrestling persona is your look, right? That is the first time that people are interacting with you, and it's with their eyeballs. So the first thing that's going on is they're going to see you. So I definitely look to comics and video games for inspiration on, and I don't just mean now with my current silhouette, if you will, and just kind of changing out the color palette for different sort of nerdy fandoms and stuff like that. I mean, truly like in the design, like what the same approach that, maybe artists take to designing a comic book character is how I took to designing what I wanted my in-ring gear to look like. And over the time, various iterations of that gear, that was where I pulled inspiration. Found a silhouette that works. Now it's a matter of color or palette swapping and changing out what that silhouette itself looks like. Now, to further answer that question, the persona, as far as like actions and everything, it's a lot of myself turned up to 11 and 12, quite frankly. You think I'm ridiculous on TV? You think I'm ridiculous in the ring? It's got nothing on actual real life Nyla Rose. Like that is 100% me. I'm not necessarily playing a character. I'm just seeing how much of it I can get away with on national television. I probably would say I punch things up a little bit. Not too long ago, somebody kind of described me as if Deadpool got a hold of the Venom suit, or if Venom melded with Deadpool. And I really like that descriptor. So I think I'm trying to lean into that a little bit more.
That's an incredible self-description. It's a great one to put in your resume.
That's when I heard that, I was like, you know what? That not only do I love that feels right. Let's see where we can go with that. That feels very right.
With gear and stuff like that, this is off the cuff, but is there any things you're into that you haven't gotten to work into one of your in-ring outfits yet that you're looking to do?
100%. There are two that are kind of like in waiting, if you will, waiting for the right moment to kind of debut them. Now that Thunder's kind of like answering my calls a little bit, seems like one may be a little bit, we might see one a lot sooner than previously expected. The other one that I definitely want to pull the trigger on is Borderlands. Working out the cell shading in a real life platform. I would love to create a psycho gear for Borderlands. I'm a huge fan of the Borderlands series, and I think some psycho gear would look really cool.
That has been, the Tiny Tina has been my life for the past week.
Oh my God, she's the best.
Oh, the writing in those games is just so much fun, and the style. Yeah. I'd love to see that in the ring. Now, after you're out of the ring or for the night or even before, do you have any rituals? Like, is there anything that you like do, watch, listen to, or something that you always do as part of your routine?
Nothing major, no major rituals, but I definitely like to find a quiet place. So I'm not talking about the movie. I don't watch Netflix before I go fight, but like if I find a quiet location in the arena, and I just kind of take some time to myself, clear my head, focus on winning, focus on the goals as there were. What do I need to achieve for the night? Is there something on a personal level in my training that I've been working on that I want to focus on? Getting across in this match. Those are the kind of things that are in the head. Obviously, stretching, very, very important. I think a lot of people overlook stretching. But stretching, hydrating.
I don't do it. Speaking of toxic masculinity, I don't do it.
There you go.
No, because I'm fucking stupid, Dan.
Oh my God.
Like,
yeah, I did it.
And then I know you, like, Nyla, you don't know. Dan works for gyms in his day job. So he also knows that I'm stupid. But anyway.
I've already finished for 7 years. Oh my, I herniated 2 discs in my back because I was deadlifting without warming up.
Oh, see, no.
Yeah,
so we're stretching, we're warming up, we're stretching, hydrating. And if it's a big match, if I need that little bit extra, I probably have my headphones on and I'm just listening to something that's going to really get me hyped up, which is probably going to be like some Skrillex, some dubstep, some Tech Nine, wrestling themes, quite frankly, like just anything that's really going to get the adrenaline going.
I love it.
I also use wrestling themes at the gym.
And Static X.
Yours included. So I totally back that. I think I have a loop of all 3 of Kenny's major themes going back to NJPW. Nice. Well, they're all good.
His NJPW
like Lovers one
rips.
Well, there's the one that's like Sephiroth, and then there's the Golden Lovers one, which, I mean, whatever. To me, it's the Golden Lovers. They were a couple, so that automatically is always my favorite tag team when they're together, even though it's mostly, well, it's like semi-headcanon, right? But I distinctly remember just running like to the power of gay wrestling love in my mind for
it's canon for our show, so it's fine. We believe in it. I think that's when I realized I was a real wrestling fan. I was like, oh, I'm listening to wrestling themes just for fun now. So now this is for the whole family. What about wrestling and comic fans? What do you think about those two things make the fan bases cross over so often? If not, they're one and the same. What do you think about the two mediums speak to one another?
If I could dumb it way down and summarize it in one word, I would say it's the theatrics. The theatrics of it all. What's to stop Joker from just like stabbing Batman in the throat? Like, he knows he's a regular dude, right? Like, and Joker is very, very capable brawler. He's a very good fighter. Pain tolerance through the roof. So he'll take a few shots to the face, but just stab him in the throat, like, and then it's over. But no, he goes through all these theatrics, the presentation, costumes, sometimes fireworks, just this elaborate trap to get the Batman. And kind of the same thing with pro wrestling. Like, we can just walk out there, punch someone in the face, but there's all these theatrics about it. The pyro, the entrance, the music, posing. And I think the overlap there is the theatrics, the presentation, the costumes, the larger than life personalities, villains with that curly mustache that just like over the top evil. I think it's all of that rolled into one.
I'd love to see Batman.
You heard it here, folks. Nyla wants Joker to squash Batman.
Yeah. I'd love to see them hit each other with like a V-trigger.
He is my favorite.
Joker?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Interesting.
I mean, wrestling moves are very good to put in action comics. I think I've had Aquaman do at least 3 different wrestling moves when I was writing that for the DC Giants. He definitely did an Alabama Slam, and I was like, nobody will predict this. Nobody will get this. Everybody got it. Like, it's always, I mean, but then again, like Wesley Snipes does a suplex in Blade 2 out of nowhere.
The new
like,
Spider-Man, No Way Home. Like, he spine busters him through like 12
that
floors.
is nasty. That's better than Big Dave's spine buster.
Willem did it.
Yeah, that was like a Powerhouse Hobbs, like an Arn Anderson level, like powerhouse. He knocked him all the way down. That was incredible.
The thing
that whole scene.
I mean, I was happy that we finally got a good Goblin Spider-Man fight scene for sure. And it also reminds folks what I talk about to my comics writers all the time, is that, many wrestling moves would just kill you if it wasn't going to work. So it's good that Spine Buster basically took him out because, I love that. Let's talk, Nyla, about how a DDT is a transitional move now. Let's talk about how a Code Red is a transitional move now. Like, these things you'd just be dead. That's my answer actually, is that wrestlers in of themselves are also presented as superhuman because, as I said, getting punched in the face once I was like, shut it down.
It's over.
So, but no, I think she's absolutely right. Like, it is a very similar grandiose type storytelling. Obviously the medium is different. The setting is a little different, but, the stage is different, that is, but the way the stories are told, high on melodrama, high on bombastic sort of characters and things like that. And so I do think that's why there's a lot of crossover. And again, as she said, very clear heroes and villains for the most part. If we're talking about Capes comics, obviously comics can be anything, but folks love that. And I've got a lot of opinions about that I don't always understand. Like, I don't, but it remains true. The best angles in wrestling, there's a clear villain, there's a clear hero. I always wonder, and maybe you have an opinion, Nyla, that's not the way it is in shoot combat sports. Some people like one guy, some people like another. And yet I find that the angles that are like face or heel, they never get over in the same way. So I've always wondered why it's different, but it certainly is that way. The personalities are big, the characters are big. I've never necessarily understood why it's so much more successful than, again, if you're watching UFC, I might like one person, someone else might like one other person, but it's not like, there's no Katie Vick angle. Like, none of them are like trash. Well, some of them are trash people, but odds are not all of them are super trash people.
I think it has to do with like the human condition, emotions, being able to attach to something. Even if you have something where two good guys are going at it, you're probably going to attach to one over the other, right? Let's look at Civil War, specifically the movie, because that's most people's point of view for that, right? You got Cap and Iron Man, both heroes, but one of them's kind of playing the heel at any given moment. One of them's playing the bad guy in that specific universe, that very micro relationship. One of them is being a little bit more of a shithead than the other. So they're doing their job for that moment. And that's going to be a reflection of your point of view. Is it Cap that's being the dickhead? Is it Starks that's being the dickhead? Who knows? It really depends on your emotional level and where your morals lie. But that's what's going to make that work. That's just my
I was going to say, like, Iron Man mega heel. I don't know what you're talking about. There's no and even more so in the comics, actually.
Well,
like the movie actually does a better job of shades of gray. Like, in the comics, he's just unassailably a chode in that book.
The Judas.
But he got better.
Which is why I said, let's take the movie.
Yeah, and then they he finds out one guy killed his parents and they beat the shit out of him. Great. I love it.
God. I will say, I don't know, this is a deep comics cut. I don't know if either of you followed the JMS Olivier Thor run.
Can't say I do.
But there's an amazing issue that's post Civil War that comes out where, like, because Thor is dead during Civil War. And he comes back and suddenly he's like, oh, my two friends, what's going on? What's been happening? And not only is, Cap dead, but Iron Man stole his DNA and turned him into a murder clone. And like, it's just such a good issue because Iron Man, so he comes to Oklahoma where Thor is living at the time and like tries to sort of front to him. And it's just 24 pages of him getting like, it's a squash, and at the end, Thor is like, just, this is the difference between a man and a god. And then he makes him walk from Oklahoma to New York because his armor is shut down. Like, it's amazing. I mean, that whole first 12 issues is great, but that Iron Man Showdown issue. And Dan, if you haven't read it, you must find it. It's extremely good.
So speaking of my Marvel reading, I have one question for you, Steve, before our big finale. Now, you know that I have just read literally all of Daken. Read all of his issues. I just wanted to feel like I was one of those X-Men fans who knew something about something. Now, for you, as you're writing Daken, where do you think he is in his emotional journey of self-discovery? Like, where do you think you're finding him at the start of your book, Marauders?
I think that, he is finding sort of radical acceptance with Aurora has been a big moment for him. It's not as though they don't act as though they've magically, quote unquote, fixed each other, because that just isn't how relationships work and minds work. But they have acted like, there's nothing that they could admit or nothing that they could do that would like drive the other way. And I think that that's a really powerful moment for him, because he has been reckoning with his past and his actions. And we'll see that actually a lot of Marauders 6, by the way, our tie into Judgment Day. But I think that in Aurora, he's found something that he hasn't had in a long time. And he has that to an extent with Laura and Gabby, and probably to a step back extent, Logan. But they've tried to kill each other numerous times. So I would put him behind the other ones. But I think that he is, in an Akihiro way, he's not writing a journal, but I think a lot of his journey now is sort of an inventory of his past, and that'll come to a head in the Judgment Day issue for sure. There's a question of, because we've seen him in X Factor reckon with the way his powers work and how he might have been shitty in the past and how he's trying not to be shitty in that way now. I don't think that he's the type of person that would necessarily ever think he needs forgiveness or want it, but I think that he's taken ownership of the shit things he's done. And much like Cassandra Nova, to me at least, I think he's saying, I did that and now I'm doing this. And we'll see how that works. We'll see if he really means that. But I do think a big pivotal moment is what he has with Aurora. They're both people that struggle. In Aurora's case with mental illness, in Akihiro's case with his own sort of internal demons of a variety of sorts. But they know that they're not adrift. They know that they're each other's port now, and I think that is a big moment for him. It's something that he hasn't had, in a very long time, and he has that to an extent with Somnus as well. Somnus spent a subjective lifetime with him. He knows him really well, and as with anything, whether it's Aurora or Somnus or or the as they've been called, the Snikt family. Part of that is knowing when someone is full of shit. So part of it is knowing when to take someone's bullshit and when to call out that bullshit. And I think if there's he's never really had that. And look, it's going to be an adjustment period for him, but I think this is the way forward for him. I think there's a lot of times in his life, which off the top of my head is probably coming up in 100 years, maybe 80. But because he's born before World War II. Yeah. So, where I think he's thought that he wasn't really worthy of these things. And I think he's coming around to the fact that he is now. And it's going to be a process when you spend a long time self-loathing and just vomiting that rage out at everybody else, trying to kill your dad for 60 years. The path is long, but I think he's on it. I think it's an exciting moment
now,
and I'm, clearly not a murderous bisexual, but I am a formerly toxic, somewhat angry bisexual. So I feel a lot of kinship with him.
Now, I never asked for teasers or anything like that. That's not how I roll, but I asked you this beforehand. What can Daken fans, mostly me, look forward to with your writing of the character?
Well, I'll say one thing. He's had names that people have given him to hold him down. He's had names that he got just for being born, but he's never had a name he earned, and he's never really had a code name. And he's going to have that before the end of the first arc. And he's going to do something that even Logan hasn't successfully done before. And I think that as well is going to be a big pivot point for him, because he's taken something for himself. Look, his nickname is something that other people made, when he was younger to denigrate him. And yes, he's tried to own it and so on and so forth for decades, but now he has something that he's earned. He hasn't had to polish a turd. Like he has a real personal accomplishment. And I think it's a big step forward for him, and beyond that, as I said, I mean, he's a Wolverine character, so he's going to be earning that in the goriest, bloodiest way.
Beautiful.
But I'm very happy about that because I realized, like there's a lot of controversy with his name, understandably so. But at its core, he's never had a quote mutant name. He had his human name and he had the name that assholes gave him. And so he'll finally get that. And I think it's a term of honor from the culture that gives it to him. And I think it's a big step forward for him. And of course, he's going to earn that by doing some nasty ass violence, as is the way in this Nick family.
I'm so excited for all that. Now, before I let you go, I don't think I've ever had two X-Men writers at the same time. But as I said, comics and wrestling are crossing over so often now. Which mutants do you think are the biggest wrestling fans?
Well, we've established actually that Thunderbird's grandmother's a wrestling fan, but she's not a mutant.
Awesome.
And we've also obviously D-Man is a wrestling fan because I don't know if you know this, Nyla, but D-Man is the Captain America former sidekick who is also gay and is also a professional wrestler in universe.
Okay.
It's shocking I haven't written that character yet.
Yes.
D-Man is short for Demolition Man, but it is of course funny that he's D-Man and then they made him gay. But anyway, such is the way with comics. But
yeah.
I mean, Colossus, there's no doubt. He already kind of looks like Zangief these days.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know who else. You need to answer one now. I think I can ramble, but you need to answer.
I'm racking my brain. I feel like Beast would be a wrestling fan.
Well, Beast is a big dick these days, but I think maybe there's versions of Beast. You got to think though, like people like Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler was a circus worker. I feel like he would appreciate that show business stuff.
I don't know if he'd be a fan. I can see he would appreciate. I definitely think he respects it, but I could see him being like, not for me.
Who was the guy who?
Yeah, that could be true.
God's I can't remember. His thing is he was like God's enforcer recently. Oh God, I can't remember his name.
A mutant?
No, a wrestler. I think he wrestles.
Miro.
Yeah. I feel like I could be a Nightcrawler kind of guy.
I feel like Blob is probably a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Oh man, Blob is great. Also, I just can't wait for Miro to come back, Nyla. No spoilers, but I miss that man. He's gotten so beefy since coming over.
He's ripped.
Huge.
I want you off the record. You need to tell me what his plan is because he went from like big but kind of thick to like a fucking bear that rolled out of the wilderness.
I don't know.
It's got to be. It's got to be that being married to Lana.
I think he just looked in the mirror and like intimidated his body into getting into incredible shape.
I've always been a fan. You talk about people that just have it, right? Like he got a shit sandwich over at the other place. Yeah. And then, there's no question to me that, he was going to come over and do well eventually. But, I was almost, Blob is a great answer. I feel like people like Scout would really enjoy it too.
Yeah.
Probably still real to her, which is adorable.
Yeah. I kind of want, I don't know why, but I really want Ghost Rider to like wrestling. Like, I just feel like he does.
Yeah,
I could see him.
I mean, he's a stunt performer. If we're talking about Johnny, I'd actually know what Dan Ketch's job was before. He probably didn't. His job was being a plot point.
Yeah, I don't see him being like a diehard, but I think like, oh, the show's in town. Like, you guys want to go check this out? Like he checks in occasionally.
Oh, then we also have to bring up the majority of the Guthrie family. You're kidding me? Like a giant white family from the South. They're all over that shit. They're probably seeing Jerry wrestle tonight in Memphis.
Damn, I'm now imagining Ghost Rider like chilling in the parking lot, drinking beers out of the back of like a pickup truck.
Yeah,
I know he drives a motorcycle, but like it's so much cooler being a pickup truck.
But it makes sense,
he's
right?
Drinking beers. He's drinking beers out of a hell pickup truck, but the beers are just evaporating as he touches his skull face. And he's just pissed off because he can't get drunk. This is my Never Let Me In Ghost Rider. Ben, you're doing a great job, buddy.
Well, thank you both for being here. This was incredible. People should pick up the book on April 27th.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Dan, but we can't say when, but I might warn folks that there's a fairly good chance that we're getting supply chain on Thunderbird. So
I meant to ask that before.
So I don't even know if I can say the real date. / we're kind of thinking that that's not even going to be the date they told us.
Sometime
so just
thereafter,
the 20th. Coming soon.
It's coming as soon as possible after that date. As folks know, this has been hitting the whole comics industry. So I myself have been cursed in the past, but this is not my fault this time. This is the world. So we apologize, but I would rather be upfront with people. I think it's hitting maybe the first week of June, but as soon as it can after the stated date, as with all these books, like this is just striking the whole industry.
I have to wait even longer. Well,
it'll be worth it. It'll be worth the wait, truly.
Incredible. Nyla, where can people find you?
At my house, but if you show up, I will punch you in the face. So don't do that ever. You can find me online at Nyla Rose Beast on pretty much every medium: Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. Just at Nyla Rose Beast.
Do you have? I know you're doing the wrestling thing, but do you have any other project people should look out for?
Not at this time. This would have been the writing Thunderbird would have been the other project. So there is something else coming out on Netflix. I can't say when yet because it's not been made public. But there's a little projects coming out on Netflix sometime early or late, either late this year or early next year, I believe.
Hell yeah, Steve. What projects do you have? I know you write 9 million things consistently.
I sure do. Where to see me? I mean, Marauders, of course. This Giant Size Thunderbird, of course. There's more coming from Marvel. Keep an eye on TKO. I have a book I've been working on for 4 years that is finally getting announced.
One of our writers asked me to ask you about that, if you have a TKO book coming. So thank you for answering what I didn't have to ask.
Well, okay. So for that person, I already have a TKO book out called The Pull, which I'm extremely proud of, with Ricardo Lopez Ortiz on the art. So in that situation, for folks wanting to know if I'm going to do a TKO book in general, boom, you can get that on wherever TKO books are sold immediately.
I think Jake's review said plenty of ween in that one.
There is, well, you know what happened? What happened there is the book, we started working on it the very soon after, the hell is it called? Euphoria debuted.
Mm-hmm.
And they had that interview where Zendaya was like, or HBO was like, just so you know, there'll be no more than 30 penises in the first episode of Euphoria. And I immediately talked to Ricardo and I was like, we need to have 31 penises in this book. So there are many dicks. But it's not just about dicks. Unlike most of my work, there's actually a story there. So I encourage people to check it out. But there'll be the TKO announcement soon. The Transformers King Grimlock trade is out extremely soon as well. That's up for pre-order now. And of course, my Image book, Loaded Bible, Blood of My Blood, featuring a post-apocalyptic world where a clone of Jesus is fighting the new Pope, who happens to be Dracula. Is coming out right now from Image Comics as well. So, and my serial's running in heavy metal. I could go on. But you know what?
A lot of books.
I'm happy with wherever folks want to love me, as you know very well. So I'm mostly just I'm in a really solid creative space right now. It's all going to be some of the best shit I've done. But if you had to pick one, man, I owe my energy for and reinvigoration for this gig to coming to the X-Men office. So please follow Marauders. Please follow this giant-sized X-Men Thunderbird and be part of it because we're going on a wild ride. And all the stuff around it, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not going to suck my own dick here. That's what any number of other people are for. But I'm pretty proud of what's coming out in 2022. So keep an eye out.
Did you say Spider-Man? Your 2099? That's what I'm pumped
that's
about.
Why I need you.
Yeah, that's
why I need you, buddy.
No offense to the X stuff, but you know how I feel about Spider-Man, so I'm super excited to see your take on
there's X-Men 2099 as well. So starting in June, as Dan pointed out to me, because my nose is so to the ground, Spider-Man Exodus 2099, It is the 30th anniversary of 2099. We have bookend issues starring Miguel. I mean, every issue features Miguel, but the middle issues also feature classics from the 2099 line. They also feature brand new characters from 2099. They also feature folks that have been in the revitalizations in between. We're loving it all. We're giving love to the whole thing. And it goes without saying that obviously Miguel is great. The X-Men, my personal favorite, along with Miguel in the 2099 line. And this is just some of the best looking material I've ever been part of. The editors put together a murderer's row of folks. Paul Fry's on the bookends. Our Winter Soldier focused issue features Dave Wachter. God, can I remember them all? Here we go. The Loki issue is Marco Castiello, who's just coming from Aftershock with Ron Mars. The Avengers issue is by Z. Carlos. It's maybe the most challenging issue I've ever written, and God love him. He went above and beyond. It's gorgeous, and it probably has more new characters than anything I've ever been part of, and he just took it and he crushed it. The X-Men issue by Kim Jacinto, my personal favorite because I love them X-Men 2099 mutants. The Black Widow issue is by Alessandro Miracolo. Boom, and then we are back with Paul Fry for the end. I did them all, and they are all operating at peak efficiency. This is some of the best cyberpunk Marvel you folks are ever going to see.
God damn, you did it. So you can find us at gatecrashers.fan, which is our website, where we have Ring Crashers every week with catching up on all things AEW. We have all sorts of different things on our site. You can find us on all social media at GateCrashersPod. And you can find me wherever. Hey, thanks for listening. See you soon.
It's the Gatecrashers.